We're talking cybersecurity with the Chief Information Security Officer of Teleperformance, which has 500,000 employees. Welcome to Jeff Schilling, and a huge shout out to the Island Enterprise Browser.
Teleperformance is the largest business process outsourcing company in the world. We deliver client experience services in 170 countries with a physical presence in approximately 100 countries. And the main thing that we like to achieve is to reduce the friction between our clients and their customers by providing the right human touch and emotional intelligence powered by advanced analytics as well as AI and machine learning.
Jeff, tell us about your role as Chief Information Security Officer.
I'm the global CISO, been with the company for about 4.5 years. And on my team, I have about 600 employees in over 40 countries. And basically, we're responsible for the information security monitoring and response, as well as I have a fraud detection and response team. Because of our contractual requirements, we also have to stay compliant with some of the global information security standards that are out there, such as ISO 27001, ISO 27701, PCI DSS, as well as High Trust, where we deliver U.S. care health services.
Jeff, you mentioned the word friction. What do you mean by that?
Teleperformance, what we do for a living is provide customer experience. And it's our bread and butter. A lot of our clients, they have other things that they do for their customers. And so what we do is we go out and we recruit the best humans with the best emotional intelligence. And then we apply the technologies to support those humans to deliver those customer experiences. That could be generative AI solutions, as well as the telephony, as well as chat solutions that help our clients engage with their customers.
Jeff, what are the unique challenges of securing a global BPO company?
Our global reach is probably the biggest challenge, being in over 100 countries. And then we also operate in 300 languages, as well as 300 different cultures. And so understanding how to manage security across those global human terrain is something that we have to take into account. The other thing is my security program isn't just my security program. I have a shared risk management program with our 1,400 clients because we have a shared risk environment that we have to ensure that my security program complements our customer security programs. And then like any company our size, our CEO and founder started the company with 10 people, 10 telephones over 40 years ago. And now we're 500,000 employees. We've grown through acquisition. And any company that's grown through acquisition has a lot of IT boundaries out there that you have to work across. And so that's one of the other big challenges is having those solutions that allow us to work across those multiple IT environments.
Jeff, how does Island's enterprise browser help you manage these various risks?
One of the things that you have to level set on, what is a browser? The browser is our employees' window into not only our corporate environment, but also into our client service delivery environment. Because many of our clients use a browser delivered application for our agents to work on, and our agents are who is working for our clients. So what Island gives us is that tool to manage how our employees interact with our corporate environment as well as our clients' applications, and then be able to manage that risk very granularly. One use case that I call out, we may have a client that may want our agents that are supporting them to be able to go to YouTube to watch YouTube videos for some reason. That can be a risk in that if they're allowed to be able to do comments in YouTube, that could be a way that they could get data out of the environment. So being able to render that YouTube experience for sometimes our back office employees or our front office employees, but then they'd be able to not render the ability to do comments is one of those granular controls that I'm talking about. And then the last thing is because we're such a large IT environment, having that remote access to those different environments without some of our key IT professionals, as well as some of our workforce management folks that are centralized in our global business services, without having to have all those different logins, those different environments is a plus to use Island for that remote access.
It sounds like the way you use Island is highly multifaceted.
A couple of things that were really hard for us to do at scale. First is data loss protection, both from, say, a chat scenario as well as files moving around our environment that may be, corporate confidential, corporate restricted. We don't want that to move out of the environment, as well as some digital rights management. So Island is a great solution for that, as well as just simply controlling the web access of our employees, similar to what a proxy does, I think, but even better because it can manage that presentation layer and mask things that we don't want our employees maybe to be able to do. And then the last piece from the browser perspective is the secure password vault is very effective for us. Having that in an environment that we can control, as opposed to maybe, say, back office employees using their personal accounts to save their passwords in their browsers, is definitely a huge value for us. And then two other major things that Island brings to us is that ability to reduce our virtual desktop infrastructure, especially where we have key employees that are accessing multiple environments. Instead of stacking those virtual desktop licenses on one user, then they just need one virtual desktop, and then they can use Island to interact it with the different environments. And then probably the thing that my CIO likes the best about Island is it allows us to extend some of the CapEx investments that we make on endpoints from 3 to 4 years to maybe 6 to 7 years, because many of our employees are only interacting with the office environment through the office productivity tools. And all that can be done through Island as the enterprise browser. So it really drives down the equipment and endpoint needs that a employee has, and allows us to stretch out that CapEx spend.
Jeff, how is your team organized?
I have a global staff of about 250 security professionals. And then we have 4 regional CISOs. And each regional CISO has a portion of the organization that is somewhere between 90 and 120,000 employees. And on their security staffs, they have approximately 100 folks. So we're organized into those 4 regions.
How does your security organization interact with the rest of this very, very large business?
We run several governance processes, of which I'm a co-chair with other key leaders. On the procurement side, it's the third-party risk management committee. On the privacy side, it's the Teleperformance Privacy and Security Committee. And then with the enterprise risk management team, I am a co-chair to our Global Compliance and Security Council. And so we run that governance process to ensure that we're managing risk across those 4 towers inside the corporate business. But then we also interact on a daily basis because we're constantly monitoring our environment, both for information security incidents and cybersecurity incidents, as well as fraud incidents. So that there's really 2 different ways. It's through a governance process, and then as well as a service provider providing those security services to all of our business owners.
Given your large footprint, you must be a kind of early warning system for various evolving attacks and threats.
It's not just because of who we are. In fact, not many people have heard of Teleperformance, but they've definitely heard of every one of our clients, because of those 1,400 clients, 850 of them are Fortune 1000 companies. So a lot of times the threat actors may actually be attacking our clients, but the target that they're actually attacking is Teleperformance.
As these threat actors become more sophisticated and their techniques evolve, what is the impact on your response?
At the end of the day, we want to focus that we do 4 things very well when it comes to cybersecurity. The first thing that we want to do is to protect our environment from rogue access. That means a threat actor getting a foothold inside of our environment. In fact, I'll tell you, most of our security spend goes into the technology to provide that first key performance factor. The next thing we do is we have to protect elevated privileges, because with a 500,000 person company, we know that we're never going to be able to prevent that rogue access every time. So at the end of the day, the threat actors are trying to get after elevated privileges. So if we make our elevated privileges using FIDO2 technology to really protect those and make it almost impossible to compromise, then the threat actors are typically not able to get what they need from the environment if they can't elevate privileges. The third thing that we do is we want to protect against data leakage. Data leakage doesn't always occur just because of a data breach or a security incident. Sometimes employees just make mistakes. And that's where a tool like Island comes in to really help us, because as that browser, a lot of times that data is moved and accessed through the browser, and then we can write those security controls inside of Island IO to make sure that if we don't want a piece of data to leave the environment, we can tag it. And as an employee tries to move that data, then Island would prevent that. And then the last thing is we know that we're not going to be perfect. We need to ensure that we can respond very quickly and decisively when we do detect an incident. And that's something that we measure on a monthly basis to make sure that we're staying ahead of the threat, which right now the average threat can usually get a foothold within an environment in less than 60 minutes. So our goal is to be able to detect and respond and mitigate in under 30 minutes.
So Island then is the intermediary between employees and the outside internet, and therefore that's how you're able to manage security through Island. Is that a correct way of saying it?
I think it's both the outside world and how we interact with the World Wide Web, as well as it's internal with our corporate applications, because we also access our files, whether it's in SharePoint and other office productivity tools using the browser. And actually, that's where I think that we get the best return on investments is controlling how our employees are interacting with our internal corporate environment.
So on this topic of controls, how do you balance security and control against ease of use and not putting obstacles in the way of your employees as they do their daily work?
One of the things that we've tried to do with our security program is make it invisible to our employees and make it where our employees don't really have to think about security. I know that sounds counterintuitive because a lot of CISOs want the employees thinking about security and training on security. But when you operate at the scale that we operate at, we have to do the best we can to engineer the security out of the user experience so that they're being protected, but they don't really have to take any actions. And that's where a technology like Island is great for us, because we can granularly control how they interact with both the external world when it comes to their internet browsing, as well as how they access our corporate office productivity tools.
So you're putting policies in place that enable employees to do their work, but hopefully don't present obstacles or interfere with that work getting done.
And obviously, we're not going to be perfect at that. A good use case here that we've engineered is there may be a website that one of our back office employees needs to go to, but maybe we have it blocked for some reason. Maybe it's in a category of sites, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's something that we don't want our employees to go to on a regular basis. So when that happens, we have an integration with our service management tools such that that employee can request to have that open. And because Island does great integration with our IT service management tools, within hours, we can have that website unblocked and approved, what could typically maybe take weeks to get done.
So you maintain the flexibility to be responsive to the business needs while keeping those policies in place.
Yes, absolutely.
Jeff, how do you measure and communicate the value, the importance of security to the organization?
Obviously, our company's made a huge investment in the security technology that we use. So one of the things I communicate back to the business is how well are we implementing that security technology? And what really helps us is when the security vendors can provide benchmarking or some type of tool that can help us measure how well we've implemented the full capabilities. And then with a partner like Island, it's even more valuable in that sometimes we may have a use case that maybe Island is just on the edge of being able to handle, and then being able to communicate that to them that maybe there's a feature request that we would like to either tweak a capability that they have or an added capability. That's huge value for us. And then how do we measure it to the business? For us, it's all about business impact. Did we have any interruption in service? And was there a financial impact to the company or our clients due to any type of security incident that we may have? And then the last thing that we're trying to provide value back to the company for is protecting our reputation. As you know, from all the data breaches that are announced almost every day, especially now with the new SEC reporting requirements, it can really take a company a long time to recover from a major security incident. And so that's another piece that we try to show the value back to the company, is that we're managing our reputation and not having damage from a major security incident.
So you're looking at both industry performance benchmark data as well as security breaches and other impacts directly on the business. And that's your measurement approach.
Yes.
Jeff, how do you use risk assessments and penetration testing to identify areas for improvement?
Our service delivery environment is a shared risk environment. Our agents are logging into our IT infrastructure, and then they are connecting into our client infrastructure, where they use the applications that our clients manage to deliver those services. So we have to constantly do risk assessments for every single client to understand, because every client is unique, to understand what are the risks that are Teleperformance owned risks that we need to mitigate on our side. And then what are some of the ones that are jointly owned by us? And then what are the ones on the client side that we see that the client should address, and then continuously communicate that to the client so that we understand where the risk is. Now, the pen testing and red teaming for us is important because of the global complexity of Teleperformance, and especially the complexity of our IT environment. We have to constantly be checking to make sure that our security controls as well as our policies are in place and that they are working as designed. So we use penetration testing and red teaming to basically check our environment. And then we do it in a scenario base. And the way I like to explain it is, what if an agent had their machine compromised? What would a threat actor be able to do with that? And then we run a pen test or a red teaming from there. What if the red teaming person or the threat actor gets access to a help desk person's environment? And then we do the penetration testing from there. So we don't start with the red team having to get access. We assume that at some point the threat actors are going to get access. So we do more of a scenario-based red teaming.
And you're working highly collaboratively with your clients. You have your own set of standards and processes, and then you're interacting with them as a shared security responsibility, we could say.
Right. And we actually send them documented reports to every single client that we call security risk assessment, that really gives the results of that security risk assessment, then also provides that binning of the risk, whether they're Teleperformance owned risk or risk that we share together and that we need to work on together to solve, or if it's on the client side.
So again, it's a highly collaborative approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about your process for rolling out or introducing new software?
We're constantly doing gap assessments to see what holes we have in our security strategy. And, because the threat actor is always changing, we can never sit back and say, well, we're done. We've made all these investments in security. So we're constantly doing gap assessments, but we usually try to formulate all the gaps towards the fourth quarter and really understand what are the gaps that we need to close for the next year. And then we go through a process of looking for solutions and doing proof of concepts and bake-offs to see which technologies are best suited for Teleperformance. And then obviously we'll make a selection out of that. And then you have to go through the third-party risk assessment as well as a contracting process. And then you have to establish a good global project plan. And we have some of the best project managers in the world to make sure that you're doing the full implementation of that technology. Because when I ran an incident response practice years ago, when we would roll up into a company, that was usually the biggest thing that we noticed, was that the security technology was bought and paid for, but the companies never fully implemented the technology. So that's something that we focus on here in Teleperformance, and we have very detailed project plans to make sure we fully implement.
We've just spoken about rolling out tools, but what about the processes?
We typically align to the industry best practices, and those best practices are measured every year through our certifications, whether it's ISO 27001, ISO 27701, PCI DSS. We also get SOC 2 certified. So we're constantly being checked and ensure that we align to those best practices, because we have to have that documentation for our clients. But then obviously things change and the threat actors change. So really where we see the most change happening is down at that procedure level. and how do we respond when certain things happen. So our processes stay pretty standard and aligned to the industry best practices, but our procedures is where that tactical change happens that allows us to adjust to what a threat actor is doing.
You were just describing the rollout process for new software, new technologies, new tools. Can you use Island as an example and tell us how you rolled that product out?
We were looking for a solution in how we manage our corporate interaction with both the external web as well as our business productivity tools. And a secure browser seemed like the technology that we were looking for. So once we decided to go with Island, we really partnered with our IT platform team that's responsible for our desktop experience for our employees. And that partnership has really made this project take off and really kind of go quickly, because we're trying not only solve a security problem with the enterprise browser, but we're also solving an IT problem. That's access to those many networks.
Jeff, your comments indicate a very close relationship between your team in security and the IT team. I think this is such an important point.
I think that any CISO that's not partnered with their CIO is set up for failure. This has been my third CISO role, and I would say I have the best relationship with our CIO and our IT organization of any of those last three companies that I've worked for. And it's funny because this is the first time that I actually don't work directly for the CIO, but that partnership between the two of us is very important. I like him to look to me as a service provider, and he's my customer. And so we work hard every day to make sure that we are staying up with the IT direction that they're going in, their IT strategy, as well as ensuring that we provide the security services to his organization to make sure that they're protected.
This close relationship is very clear. It's very apparent.
Yes.
Jeff, what are the security and awareness training challenges in such a large organization of 500,000 people?
One of the things we always try to do is to keep our employees' responsibilities to a minimum. In other words, the security technology is protecting them, and there's not much that the employee has to do. Unfortunately, you never get to where that's zero. So one of the things that we do, and this sounds counterintuitive, but I actually shortened the training last year, and we made it more engaging. And what we actually saw was that the test questions were a little harder, and they weren't so much gotcha, but the employees actually performed better because the training was more scenario-based. The other thing that we do is we also test the knowledge through phishing emails, because at the end of the day, that's still how the threat actors get access into most large enterprise environments, through phishing email. We send out about 100,000 phishing emails a month across our whole environment. And so we test that on a regular basis, and we like to measure what is our click percentage. And then not only what's our click percentage, but how many of those employees actually follow through with the actions that the threat actor is asking them to do in the email. And then the last piece of that is this also informs our red team and our penetration testing team on where they need to focus when they are engaging our employees through that red teaming and pen testing to see where our weaknesses are. And so, and then the last thing that we have the capability to do is, as we see emerging threats, say we see threat actors, SMS, phishing our employees and maybe pretending to be our CEO, we can send out we call them BOLO messages, for be on the lookout messages, very quickly to all of our employees within hours with a particular message. And then we can translate into the 14 operational languages that we use to make sure everyone's aware of a emerging tactic, technique, and procedure.
So at the end of the day, Island is helping simplify your technology landscape. At the same time, it's efficient from a cost standpoint. It's helping you save money.
Absolutely. And it's really making our employees' window to our corporate and client environment simpler, safer, without the employees feeling the impact of the security technology on their everyday productivity.
It's a good combination.
Yes.
Jeff Schilling, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and thank you for this opportunity.